Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the source documents of a secret FBI program, one that waged a covert war on its own citizens for decades. It was called COINTELPRO. And let's just start with this, a really stark admission from William C. Sullivan, a former top FBI official. It kind of sets the stage perfectly for what we're about to unpack. A program that ran for years, deep in the shadows, and, by its own account, operated completely outside the normal rules of law and morality.
So, what exactly was this program that seemed to have no moral or legal guardrails? Well, the declassified documents give us a name that, once it was exposed, became pretty infamous. The name is COINTELPRO, which is short for Counterintelligence Program. Now, the original memos show it was set up by J. Edgar Hoover himself, and it was designed from day one as a secret program of extra-legal action against groups the FBI decided were subversive. And let's be super clear here, this was not just about passive intelligence gathering, oh no. The FBI's own memos are explicit. The stated goal, right from the beginning, was to cripple or destroy these organizations. In other words, to completely neutralize them.
So the big question is, how do they do it? This wasn't just a single strategy. When you dig into the source material, it reveals a really detailed and systematic playbook of tactics, all designed with one thing in mind, to tear these groups apart from the inside out.
And the playbook really breaks down into 4 key tactics. You've got forgery, psychological warfare, media manipulation, and the use of agent provocateurs. So let's just walk through each one to see how it worked. Okay, first up, forgery and disinformation. Take a look at this. This declassified memo authorizes agents to send an anonymous letter to the wife of a leader in the Black Liberators. And the stated goal? To create marital difficulties. I mean, it's a chillingly personal way to create paranoia and internal fighting, and this was just a standard tactic for them. Next, you've got psychological warfare, and this often meant attacking a group's source of community support. This memo, for example, shows J. Edgar Hoover himself coming down hard on the San Francisco office, and what was their crime? They weren't doing enough to disrupt the Black Panther Party's popular free breakfast program, something Hoover saw as a dangerous tool for winning public support.
The Bureau also got really good at weaponizing the media. This memo here approves a plan to feed a TV station heavily edited footage of activist leaders, specifically designed to make them look incoherent and violent. And get this, the crucial part, noted right in the document, was to make absolutely sure the final product could never be traced back to the FBI.
And finally, and this is maybe the most disturbing part of the playbook, was the use of agent provocateurs. These infiltrators didn't just spy, they actively incited violence. One informant later testified that his FBI handlers actually told him to supply materials for Molotov cocktails, all to create a justification for police crackdowns and arrests.
So who was in the crosshairs of this secret program? When you really look at the documents, the sheer breadth of the targets is just staggering. It was a very, very wide net. The program started in 1956 with a pretty narrow focus on the Communist Party, but it did not stay narrow for long. The documents show it quickly blew up into this sprawling operation targeting a huge range of domestic movements. The student-led New Left, the Black Liberation Movement, the American Indian Movement, and even Puerto Rican independence groups. The anti-Vietnam War and student movements of the 1960s, what was called the New Left, were a massive focus. This 1968 memo officially launched a brand new COINTELPRO specifically designed to neutralize its key activists. Civil rights and Black power groups were targeted more heavily than pretty much any other movement. The FBI went after leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and worked to disrupt their community programs, like the Black Panthers' free breakfast that we saw a minute ago. The American Indian Movement, or AIM, also became a huge target in the 1970s. This document reveals instructions for the FBI to conduct extremist and criminal investigations into the group, and that strategy led directly to the Bureau's really heavy-handed involvement in the Wounded Knee standoff in 1973. And this right here, this comparison, it just gets to the absolute heart of the program. On one side, you have a public community service literally feeding children. And on the other, you have the FBI's covert goal, stated in their own words, to isolate that very group from the community it's trying to help. So the whole thing officially came to an end in 1971. And that happened after a group of activists literally broke into an FBI office and leaked documents to the press, exposing the whole thing to the world. But the source material argues that this wasn't really the end of the story.
The argument laid out in the COINTELPRO papers is pretty simple. The Bureau just got rid of the name, not the tactics. By killing the central program name, it protected its ability to keep doing the exact same things, just under different labels.
So the operations just became decentralized. Way harder to track. The COINTELPRO label was scrubbed from the files. And the source points to later campaigns as proof that the playbook was still very much active. Like the one in the 1980s against CISPS, a group that was opposed to U.S. policy in Central America.
In fact, an FBI informant who infiltrated that group, CISPS, later testified that the Bureau's stated objective was to break the organization. It's the same language, the same disruptive goal from the COINTELPRO era. The argument is that these methods had just become a permanent, if less visible, part of domestic intelligence.
So this brings us to our final and maybe most important question. Why does this history, all this stuff uncovered in these documents, still matter today? What is the lasting legacy of COINTELPRO?
The real legacy of the program, the source argues, is this really dangerous blurring of the lines. It created a framework where political dissent, something protected by the First Amendment, could be twisted and reframed as criminal or subversive activity, which then justifies government action against it.
And this leaves us with a pretty provocative question, one that continues to be debated decades later. Where do we, as a society, draw the line between protecting national security and policing political thought? That is the enduring and pretty unsettling legacy of COINTELPRO.